All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in for another returning episode of the Barabas and Rice Show. And today we are joined by M, Seeker of Truth. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Greg Hallett, kind of continuing on what we and Stan have been talking about. And for myself personally, I'm going to be trying to bring closure to this whole entire scenario. Maybe not in this episode, but I might have one more in me in regards to the subject. But I figure we can get a lot of stuff out. Before we kind of begin, I'd like to kind of go around and let everybody say hello and introduce themselves. Stan, how's everything going?
Going good, going well. Just got off my trip, got back, and feels good to be back. But it was a nice trip. It was good to visit you in North Carolina and see a couple other friends on the way back. So,
Dude, it was awesome seeing you, man. It was great.
yeah, it
And
was cool hanging out.
and M, for people who are unfamiliar with you, just a quick introduction and how's everything going?
Yeah, everything's going fine. Thanks for getting in touch with me. Yeah, I live in UK, England, UK. So this whole Greg thing, firstly, it's he wants to be my king. But secondly, I've been looking into him for a few months. So I think that's how we're connected.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And you created a YouTube channel, which we'll get into, and I'd like to learn more about why you decided to do this. But before we do that, and I told Stan I wanted to kind of cover this super quick. I wanted to apologize to all the people that watch my YouTube channel and on my Facebook for letting my emotions and my passion come through. I should have taken my own advice with the 24-hour rule and kind of let everything sift through my system. I made a video the next day, basically kind of apologizing for my behavior. It wasn't completely off, but it wasn't the normal me. And I really should have tried to not let my emotion come through. And I also wanted to apologize to Lee Hemington, Jack Kidd, and Lee Dawson, because I don't have any personal problem with these guys. And I don't have any, they haven't caused me any issues. The last time I mentioned everything, Mahoney, he's pretty much blocking me on social media now. Charlie Ward, I spoke to last Thursday, as I mentioned. He said he wasn't going to let any of this affect our friendship, but I got an email Saturday night saying that he was ending our relationship. So I'm not really going to continue talking about Mahoney and Charlie Ward. I've made all the information very much aware that I have to them. So they can't really say, in my opinion, that they don't know and they weren't aware, because I and others have definitely tried to make it aware. So that's kind of the last I'll try to mention of them, other than what we talk about in normal conversation. And, I'm a human being. I make mistakes. We all do. But the important thing is, when we make mistakes, is that we learn from the mistakes that we make. And for me, in my walk of practice change, it's really important for me to own up to that kind of stuff. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is like, by being the change that I want to see in this world, admitting where I may have been wrong, where I may have been mistaken. And I will do that from time to time. And I think all of us should be able to relate to that, because unless you're not a human being and you're not in the same species category as the three of us, then, that's cool if that's the case. But I just wanted to
it makes you seem more human, man. But the fact that you are doing this apology, explaining yourself, and talking about, the change that you want to see, I really appreciate that. I respect you for that. So,
thank you, man. And I appreciate what you're doing as well. Before we get totally into it, I do want to ask a question really quick. Are you a deep state agent?
Look, I'm not a deep state agent, okay? So what's Greg going to say when, I put out this YouTube channel, which we'll talk about, and I basically ask his believers to question what they are being fed. What's his response going to be? Well, he only knows me as M, Seeker of Truth. He's got nothing to attack me for. So thereby, the default is he must be a deep state agent. He said something like, I work for Emma Data Limited. I can't remember what the other name for it was called, but if that was so, then they owe me some paychecks. Get into contact with me because I could do with that money. And that's the thing guys got to look at. These people promoting Greg, You know, they all seem to have a lot of money. They have a lot of followers. Do you really think if I was a deep state agent, if they were pushing information through me, who didn't even have a YouTube channel, they would choose some guy who's unknown in these circles to push this information out? Do you think that that's really something that a deep state would do? No, they would choose people with 132,000 subscribers, and they would push it through those channels if they wanted to push information out.
What you're saying makes complete sense, but I mean, I just wanted to clarify because neither Stan nor myself want to talk to deep state agents, and I also want to clarify that I'm not a deep state agent, because in the same sense, if I was, or if I was subliminally programmed into something, I would like to definitely get paid for being this deep state agent because it's not only you that he has said that about, and that's unfortunately it just seems to be Greg's go-to. Instead of trying to be logical with what he's trying to disagree with, instead of that, he just unfortunately tends to kind of resort to insulting.
Yeah. And what's, you know, and like you just said, what's important to note is anyone that has come forward on their channel to kind of question the validity of some of the claims putting out, anyone that's done that, you know, I'll name a few, they are instantly, and including Tom Cahill, who I'll talk about later, you know, who was friends with Greg, who lived with Greg, you know, he's instantly a deep state agent. I'm instantly a deep state agent. And now you've done these videos. Now, Rice, you've joined the book of deep state agents. Anyone that wants to question what they are being fed.
Okay. So with that being said, Stan, now you've had a little bit of a chance, I think, to play slight catch up since you've been on your vacation with everything that's been going on. You're not taking the same stance right now that me and Emmer's taking. So being an observer, what is your take so far with the information that I put? I don't know if you've had a chance to look at M's YouTube channel or any of his videos.
I have not.
Okay, but what is your take on like what the interview with the sisters, the information that I put out showing discrepancies, showing about the Hidden King book? Me and you have talked about this in detail. What is your feelings and thoughts as an observer who's following the story?
So yeah, from a neutral position, it seems if you have, no matter who you are, no matter what the topic is, if you have something that you're very definite about, that has no question, then you think that coming forth and discrediting what Rice has put out as far as the questions that he has concerns about, and many others, wouldn't be a problem to come, hey, yeah, Rice, let me correct you on this. Like, so if it's regarding the story of the book, say, here's the parts that you're missing. Here's a copy of the book. Read it for yourself. That way you can see, you know, just to be able to come clean in just a simple manner makes sense to me. It seems that there's avoidance there, and it seems that something's not right, because, you know, if you're being totally honest and transparent, you want to come to the people and say, oh, well, this guy's saying this, but let me just show you, you know, why that's not the case. And then we can go ahead and put that behind us and move forward in any manner, no matter what it is. If somebody came against me, whether the claims were true or not, I'd be like, yes, that's correct. I did this when I was, you know, this age. You know, it's a different past. We all have, you know, our things that we've done. And I admit to that, yes. This part of this story is not true. Here's the validations for that. Things that I just want to clarify, because people have concerns. And once again, I don't have concerns because whatever happens to Greg doesn't change for me. So I have no emotional ties to, I think it's an interesting story regardless. Whether he's right or wrong, it's still an interesting story. If he is the king, then that's a great story. If he's not the king, it's still an interesting story, because this man
should have been a sci-fi writer.
It's a great story, no matter which way you look at it, because whatever he's talking about, if it has validity, then if even some of it has validity, like the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, that's what really got my attention, because I perceive that to be an actual thing. You can read the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document. I don't know, Em, have you read the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document? That you don't even know. You don't even know what it is, right? So that's something that to gain from this whole Hallett stories, if you want to look at whoever listens to this, actually read the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document. See what Greg's talking about the Queen and that being the coronation and what the silent weapons for quiet wars document means. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. In the beginning of that document, it states, "Welcome, gentlemen, to the 25th anniversary of the Third World War using biological warfare." So that was 1979. What does that take that back to? 1954, which was the first meeting of the Bilderberg Group. So there's a lot of education that can be brought from this. And me and Rice spoke in private and talking about this. And I told him, I said, regardless of what happens with Greg, this is a learning experience in many other ways. We get to learn from ourselves. Rice just came out and came clean and said that he got his emotions involved. Rice mentioned he blocked a couple of people. And I said, what did I tell you, Rice?
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I did unblock all those people that I blocked on my YouTube channel. And you made a great point to me, Stan. And I'm glad, as I told you, that our paths have crossed. I'm glad that you're a friend of mine, more likely family. You gave me some advice, said, you talk about freedom of speech, you really can't be blocking people on your YouTube channel. So yeah, it's critical. I'm just going to ask people to please be respectful with your comments. There's lots of ways that you can get your point across without being vulgar or disrespectful. So please be compassionate towards other people. And even myself, if you don't like me, you can say it in a way that is just not so negative and full of just foul language and negativity. So if you could do that, I would appreciate it. I have unblocked everybody. I will also say, Stan, regardless of the how this whole thing turns out, I've told you, like, I've never really looked into my ancestry, my lineage. Now I know who I am. I know where I come from, and that is a powerful thing. I've been looking into a lot more of history that I didn't really, what really wasn't interested in. You told me about war castles as we were starting to talk about Hallett. So this whole thing is taking me down a completely different avenue than I was even planning on going. I was just planning on branching out my content. Now I'm like straight up a freedom fighter who's trying to do everything I can to help be the change in a lot more ways. And, we're going to talk more about that, Stan. But I have Greg Hallett to thank for all that. In all honesty, he's an incredibly entertaining guy. He's funny. I would suggest, just my own personal suggestion. I think, and I was telling my friend Eric about this earlier, he should go into writing nonfiction books, because he's got such a great imagination, in my opinion, that he could write probably something that would be like more epic than something like Game of Thrones.
Absolutely.
Like he could probably be one of the next big, like, film star, like directors or writers or something like that. He's a very intelligent guy.
Absolutely. And
I've just asked for it to be disproved. I've asked the information that I've said, can you please tell me where I'm wrong with my research?
Which is a good question. Yeah.
And that, as you asked all these questions, I think they're, valid questions. And if there's no issues, then for any person to come forward and have a conversation, a dialogue with somebody about it, and point out the things where they're wrong and show the proofs, then that shouldn't be an issue. If it is, then there's something to question there.
It should be very simple to give that information. If you've got all this research to make extraordinary claims, well, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
And you can bar with him, Stan. So, I mean, at this point, there's no reason for Greg to not accept your second interview request, because I know you've asked for another interview for a follow-up. And, I mean, it's up to you how you want to proceed with something like that, if you're able to have that. But, I mean, if you decide that you want to ask some of the questions that I came up with based off of a lot of other people and myself and me and you kind of talking a little bit as well, I mean, you're more than welcome to use. I even said it to Greg, to Mahoney.
Well, let's just look at this clearly. You've been very adamant, some could say aggressive, with your approach, and that's okay. I think your approach is your approach. It's all out there. You've made it publicly known. People are agreeing with you that they really want answers to these questions. He's aware of it. There's no need to poke the bear any further.
Right.
If he wants to answer them, he will. If he doesn't, then that leads more to question. So it's really point in driving and beating the dead horse, if you will.
Such a wise man, buddy.
It's just, if we can pull back our emotions, I see a lot of people getting so emotionally involved with this. And it's like, if you've given Greg money and you feel you were cheated, well, then that's your lesson, right? Because you didn't do enough research at the beginning to find out if what he really is saying rings true to you. Some people really want to replace the current monarch because they didn't do anything for them. They've been stealing from them, and they really would like I said in the beginning of this, I don't know what that all means. You guys in the UK, you've been dealing with that since. I have no idea what that means. I don't know anything about it. It really doesn't ring true in my.
Well, that's a good way to segue into. This is one thing that I haven't asked him specifically because I wanted to find out some more information organically. I mean, we've got to look. We talked a little bit, but what really, honestly, because you said that you know people that were affected. So can you explain to me why you got involved with covering this? Like, what is your purpose in this, your role?
Yeah, I'm glad you said Rice, because I wanted to kind of lead on from what Stan was saying. It was a perfect segue to it, because you, Stan, speak about, if you gave him money, then, you learn a lesson from that. You really should look more into it. But for me, it wasn't, the money was a big red flag. Okay, so I'd seen the kind of asking for, or by his fans asking for money for documents and then spending it on server instead, which was a major red flag for me. But at this time, when I started sort of commenting, because back then I didn't have a YouTube channel, I was just a honest guy looking into this, for a short while. I believed it myself. I thought, well, that's great. If the monarchy, if the royals have been up to this bad stuff, which you can dig information on, then, this guy seems like an all right guy, at first, got a lot of charisma. He seems like a good guy. And, I wanted to believe it, but it didn't take me long to just kind of see these red flags and see the sister's original video. So after all of these, which I saw as red flags, I've tried to tell people through the fan sites, through his own profile, please, guys, think about it. Just before you give him money, let's just see how this plays out. Or think about it, look into the sister's video. And I got a lot of negative response, emotional response, as Rice was talking about. People get really emotional over this. And I think that when it comes down to mental health, I got quite a few responses saying, look, I was looking into this. I was staying up to 5 a.m. in the morning. I was trying to convince my family and friends that he's, the rightful king of England and that I'm not mad. And a lot of people got driven down to a hole, and a few people talked to me personally about how it affected them, their mental health, pretty badly. And I'm an advocate for mental health. I have worked in it in the past, and I've had personal experience with it. So I took it from being, okay, guys, come on, this is a silly story, or it might not be a silly story, but think about it, especially when you're giving him money, because that's starting to become serious. But it then went from that to realizing that people were coming off Facebook for a period of time because they just had enough of it, being trolled, as it were, for speaking out against him, or even trolled for speaking for him, and then later finding out that he might not be genuine. But then I heard some people messaging me saying, look, I've lost my wife over it. Look, I've lost my job over it. I've been losing sleep over it. Okay, and then at that point it became, and because quite a few people were going up, I see you talking on these fan pages. I believe that he's not genuine too. People won't listen. Why even bother? You shouldn't even bother. I've tried, they're not going to listen. And I thought, well, I had enough of these people together to kind of gather a group together to say, okay, guys, what information we've got, let's put it together. Let's make some videos. I'm not a YouTuber, but no one at the time, I could find no one sort of questioning what he was saying. And I sort of thought, if no one else is going to do it, let's do it ourselves. And then at that point, I started talking to his sisters, his family, and some of his friends, I managed to get in contact with. And that's where I started interviewing, making videos, started a YouTube channel. Like I say, it's not even a month old. And people are asking me, why is it all about Greg? You're obsessed with Greg. Well, he's the reason why, he's the reason why I'm doing this, is because if he's not genuine, which I truly believe he's not, then I want something, they've got these professionally made videos, lots of money put in them. They look fantastic. They're very easy to follow. They're very easy to believe, especially when you've got people of influence behind him. And who am I? I'm some guy that's unknown, putting out videos, but at least if I can make the videos and not just comments on the internet where people go, no, you're just a troll, maybe people will listen. And I've already seen from that a great response. A lot of people say, look, I gave him money, I believed him, I watched your video. Thank you for making that. You know, it kind of made me question about it. You didn't brainwash me into thinking this. You know, you made me question it. And I went on questioning it, and I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to give him no more money, or I'm going to try and help wake other people up. And I see this being like kind of spreading this this sort of idea to try and get people to question what they're being fed. And a lot of these people are saying, well, all these people listening to the mainstream media, you should question what you're being fed. And then everyone seems to be listening to this guy and not questioning what they're being fed.
Now, was there anybody that you knew personally, though? Or is it just people you've encountered on social media?
There is a friend of mine who sort of went deep down the rabbit hole. In fact, she sent me a message to check out this video done by Raven Moonstone, which is where I first found out about this guy. And well, first of all, I sort of, wow, great, you know, what a great uncover. I'll look into it. And then when I started saying, okay, you haven't given this guy money, have you? No, I haven't, but, you know, I fully support him. He is the real deal. Okay. And then, you know, I started to question it. And at that point, you know, and this is what hit me, you know, we're friends, we've been friends for years, but we fell out over it. We fell out just because I was saying, please question this guy. And I thought, this is not right. Why are people having such a strong emotional reaction? And I think it's because there's this big element of hope. There's a big element that Greg's going to ride into Buckingham Palace on his white horse, and, you know, all the paedophile networks are going to drop, and the whole world's going to change. And this guy is going to, I think I don't know if it was you, but I said he's going to throw the ring of Mordor into the, you know, the fire. The ring of power into
Mordor.
That's it, yeah. You know, if he comes into power, you know, is he going to abolish everything that's bad? You know, is this really going to come true? How can you trust this man? And that's what I wanted people to look into.
What do you think? So yeah, I was gonna say, Stan, I definitely want your wisdom and insight here.
Well, you know what? If we're able to just step back and dissolve our emotions, everything that you just spoke of now, Em, is people looking for something outside of themselves. Mm-hmm. And this is the problem.
Yeah.
So everybody, and we know we're in a world that's very corrupt, and people are looking for something outside of themselves to pick at it. Now, as people have heard of my videos before, I'm not a strict Bible person. I think there's some truth mixed in with some lies, but the story of Christ is about realizing the self as a Christ, not someone else outside you. When we really look at this, outside of all religions, which religio means union, like yoga means union, and these things that everybody's wanting hope to change the world, it is up to us to change the world, not one person as our leader. We can have a person as a leader that, through our desires of how we want to see this world, if that person holds the power to do that, then we send our energy flow of what we want, not how we want them to control us. That's the problem. It's reversed right now. Everything is inverted. So we take back the control and stop looking for someone to change things for everyone. This is the big problem. We are the Christ. We are the, if people are going to go crazy over this one, I'm going to say it. When you really break things down, we are God experiencing itself as itself, individually, uniquely, manifested in millions of different forms: grass, grasshoppers, bees, birds, mosquitoes, trees, humans, dogs, cats. It's all God experiencing itself as itself. So in a sense, we are the little g. That's what it is. It's just consciousness experiencing itself. So as we collectively come together and realize all this fighting, everything that's going on in this video right now can just be dissolved. And everybody can really heal themselves by realizing this. And stop putting their hope into Greg or Trump or someone else, and just take it back. And if you've given him, then you know what? You donated to him for whatever reason. Great. It's done. It's over. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. If you want to continue to support Greg, continue to support Greg. That is your choice. We all have a choice to do what we want to do in this life. But remember, don't rely on somebody else to do things for you. We have to take back the power for ourselves. That when we do that, then you'll be able to see what you see, M, and what you see, Greg, Rice, and we'll be able to see clearly, right? We'll be able to see the bigger picture and question things. It's okay to question. And if they're questioning you for questioning, then there's something wrong there, because then that becomes, again, Rice, as we've talked about, dictatorial and authoritative. If people are saying that we can't question, then they're contradicting exactly what they're talking about regarding everything else that's going on in this world.
Dude, you're so right. And I mean, when you said something about maybe people getting upset about what you're saying, one thing I'll attest for is you're an extremely spiritual person. I don't think that you subscribe to any particular belief system, but you're extremely spiritual, and you're definitely respectful of other people's beliefs. You're very compassionate in that sense. I would definitely agree with what you said. We talked about a lot that people keep looking at someone else for hope, for someone else to do something for them to help make their life better instead of doing it themselves. If people haven't seen it, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, I'll have a link down below and above for my JFK video that I did in the name of JFK and First Amendment and a few other things. And that's one of the messages that I talk about in that, is that when enough people, when individually, because I talk about being the change that I want to see with practice change, when enough people individually start being the change that they want to see in this world, and enough individuals take personal responsibility for themselves and their actions, and then enough of those people start getting together in groups. And when we can build that strength in numbers, it's absolutely 100% positive that we, the people, when enough people take a stand, nothing can stand against the people, and we can change the world together. And if someone else like Trump or whomever is trying to change the world, then all we're doing is helping them help us. But it starts with us individually, and then it's us together. And when enough of us, when we, the people, take a stand in union, there's a reason why it says united we stand, divided we fall. So when we stand united, nothing can stand against us. And I definitely agree with what you're saying, Stan. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the past experiences that you've had and had the time to reflect on life the way that you have, which I appreciate. And that's why I like you sharing your wisdom. But there are some people that just obviously you could see are completely passionate about it. So I hope they'll take what we're saying to heart. And like I said, I do want to find closure on this. Unless Greg Hallett accepts my interview request, which doesn't look like it's going to happen, I would really like to just, like you said, Stan, I've done what I can. I don't really want to waste any more of my own energy. There's so many more things that I've got to focus on that have more immediate attention to change the world for the better. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I appreciate
if you want to be fully transparent, and there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this. And so if you really want to be transparent, let's just kind of dissect what drove you to do it. So we've talked about this in private, right, Rice? And I know you're transparent, so you're open to talk about anything. So you don't need permission for me to bring anything up, right?
Nope.
So would you agree, or would you say that since it was so difficult to get an interview with Greg, that you felt that that was your drive, that he was denying you and you've gotten every other pretty much interview that you ever wanted, and that's what drove you? It was kind of, let's just say if it was like the little bratty kid that didn't get what he wanted and he's going to nag and nag and nag.
I mean, I guess there might be a part of that in where but I don't think it was my full on intention. Now, maybe subconsciously that might have driven me. I really felt I've had some things happen to me over the past month, and I've told you about this, maybe over the past 6 weeks, that I've been having a lot of questions about some of my spiritual beliefs. And for me personally, I've had some experiences that have solidified my faith. That's made me be able to stand boldly and say that Jesus is my Lord and Savior. And because of that, the Christ thing, it bothered me from the get-go. I never mentioned it because I was trying to remain, as you know, as unbiasedly as possible. And when you're seeking truth and you're a journalist looking for truth and you're coming at something unbiasedly, when you find enough information and you find what you determine to be the truth, whether it's just your perspective of the truth or the actual truth or whatever the situation might be, you then become biased to that truth. And that's kind of where I got. I became biased because I wasn't thinking that what he was saying was matching up with what I was looking at. And so, yeah, I became biased, and I wanted a point to interview him because, and now there might have been a little ego in there, but at the same time, in the letter that I wrote and the email that I did make sure that I specified that it doesn't have to be me doing the interview. I would like it. And yeah, that is the ego. That is the I in me. Yes. So I can totally admit that. But I also said I would still be completely satisfied if Mahoney asked these questions, or if Greg just took the questions and asked them himself and answered them, or anybody else was able to take this opportunity just to get that truth out there. I wanted truth to be established. And yes, the I in me wanted to be the one to establish that truth. You know, but that's unfortunately just a part of human nature. And those are the things that's hard for me to detach from. But well, I appreciate you help me recognize it.
Let me just say, when you did your video, you were asking for these questions to be answered. And like you say, you didn't mind if who asked those questions, just let's get to the truth. And just around the same time you did that video, or the day before, I think I put out my video, Lineage Lies, which kind of went through Greg's story of his lineage and matched it up to the sisters, just like you kind of did on your video. But the whole basis of that video was a slightly different tact. And that was, I asked at the beginning, if you're putting all of your faith and hope into this guy, these are questions that, from my research, that you should be asking him. Like, please watch this video, just watch it to the end, and then, see the questions that I put forward from the discrepancies that I find in his own documentation, where it's showing his own story of his lineage. And please go ahead yourselves, guys. You'll be able to see, if you actually listen to me, that these are discrepancies or things that need evidence to back them. And, please for yourselves, go and ask them, get some answers, find out whether the person that you are putting all your hope, your dreams, or maybe even your money into this guy, question what you're being fed. And so, those questions were along the lines of, where is the evidence and proof of, Walter Raleigh having, his son, Andrew Raleigh, and then the Stephen Raleigh, and then Stephen Raleigh having Sam Bellamy, the famous pirate. Where is the evidence and the proof of these links? Because without them, it's just a story. And, if you're going to put so much hope into this story, do yourselves a favor. So for me, I was asking slightly different tack to yourself, Rice. I was saying, guys, as believers, I'm just giving you some of the tools from what I found. Go and find your own truth. I think it's important. It doesn't matter who asks it. It matters that the truth, that we get to the truth. And like Stan said, even if, this guy, Greg, has brought to light a lot of important things, I think that's great. There's a lot of different movements and things coming out on the internet now, and these are posing questions and leading to real things that need looking at, real truth. And Greg is no different. He's either picked or been a part of. A lot of his followers are saying, well, Greg has exposed this, and I'm kind of saying, well, he hasn't, because WikiLeaks exposed this, or the Q movement exposed this, or just general truther groups exposed this, that, and the other of this information. But what Greg has done is he's managed to get a platform where he's put a lot of these things kind of together, and some of them, I hadn't heard of. I hadn't heard of, what Stan was talking about. I think it's important to bring those to light, but at the same time, there's an element of, okay, there's some good being done, but are we being sold these gems of truth, and at the same time being sold a deception? And where do we draw the line? Good and bad. Is there a line? We're all human. We've all got the the polarity aspect, and I just it's important that even if we find these things, it's great to acknowledge that Greg was the one that brought that to your attention, but it's important to not believe in everything that he says because he's brought some truth to the table.
Well, there are some, a lot of things that starting as this unfolds that are questionable. He has mentioned that he was adopted a couple of times in previous videos into the royal family. I did send a question to that to ask him, if the mother and the sister's lineage chart, would that be why it isn't congruent with the story? So, I mean, these are valid questions. If they can't be answered, then that's questionable. So, I'm not here to bash Greg or praise him. Like I said, whatever happens with Greg's story is going to happen. And as I've always stated, if it doesn't hold water, it won't, because it's not like, I can say I'm president of a company and to walk in, you just can't. I just can't say, hey, I'm president of Google, because I have these documents and my father was, it's not going to work, because there's people that can come and refute it. And if his story's that outrageous, maybe that's why it's being ignored, or maybe they're putting it on the back burner. At this point, I really don't know, because I can't claim to know how everything works in this complicated world, as how complex. I mean, as me and Rice are finding out as we dig into this whole maritime admiralty law and
everything we look
all
into.
This stuff, it's like, there's so much that I don't know at all, but everything that I'm learning is saying, it's just so much going on. How would I really know how things work? I don't, and I can't claim to.
I will say, dudes, like, honestly, I wasn't expecting for this to turn out like this, but I'm glad it did, because everything happens for a reason. And like, I'm glad, again, man, I can't stress enough about how much I'm glad to have you in my life, Stan. We need to keep each other in check. And I don't have a problem. I mean, like, that's, in a sense, that's kind of what you did right here, so everybody can see it. Like, you put me in check, and it's cool. Like, I love you for it, dude.
Well, Rice, this is the beauty of it.
It makes me think about the things that I'm not thinking about, and that's what friends should do for each other. Is we should uplift each other and be able to move each other in positive and better directions. And if people in your life aren't doing that, then you might want to rethink about who you have in your life, because Stan lives in Florida and he's done more for me just by being there for me than a lot of my blood relatives, that a lot of people who I see on a daily basis. So Stan, man, I just can't thank you enough.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it's all us. It's not me doing anything. It's you pulling through me what you want to see. So I don't take credit for anything. This is how divinity works. So this is exactly what's happening right here on this video.
You're just Bodie from now on.
For all the people watching this, the big lesson is the Great Awakening, but it's deeper than Greg. It's deeper than Trump. It's what we're talking about here. It's really connecting to ourselves, to our Christ consciousness, to our, I don't want to sound what they call New Agey, because it's not New Agey. It's old wisdom. It's ancient wisdom of reflecting back into the self, realizing the self as a non-combative. Well, and if we're not trying to
take, says this in the Bible, though. Jesus says that you can do all that I do and greater.
You shall do greater things. Yes.
So, and he mentions that we are all sons of God. So Jesus wasn't elevating himself above anything else. And that was the other thing too, is Jesus was very much in the Bible, for what we understand, very much glorifying his Father as much as possible. And I just haven't seen that on the other end. And there's been a lot of claims that would be similar to the Jesus Yeshua person, individual, depending on who that really is. Because that's the only thing I question is, where did the Roman Catholic Church, the Constantines, the Flavian dynasty, the Council of Nicaea, where did all this twist the story of Jesus? Because then that's the only confliction I have, is that the Romans were the ones, the Constantines, the Flavians, they were the ones who wrote this thing that we call the Bible. And that's my only problem. That's why I try to look into other things like the Nag Hammadi text and the Dead Sea Scrolls. And when you talk about us being an extension of God, Stan, that's pretty much what the Nag Hammadi text, which would be what people consider Gnostic Christianity. esoteric knowledge that we are all a piece of God. We are all just a reflection of God. It's like
Fractal. Fractals.
a little person, a little piece of the personality. All of us together, everything on this earth, everything in this universe, everything living and breathing is a piece of that. That's
fractals, just emanations of source, the Merkaba. But so I mean, I know this video was supposed to be about revealing, what Greg's story and people's emotions and feelings, what's going on in the UK with it. But ultimately, I think the biggest lesson here is learning how it's creating division, and that's the whole what we're trying to get away from. And if Greg is trying to join kingdoms and join times, then it's not starting out very well.
No, it seems to be.
So we have to look at that. We have to look at what's going on here, even with Charlie and David. There's separation it's just creating separation. It's creating division, and we're missing the big picture. That's not what the awakening is about. The awakening is about coming. Picture. It's coming together. So if we gather anything from this, what's happening with Greg's story, Trump, what we're doing here, just the three of us on this video and whoever watches this, is to realize we shouldn't be separating. If we're coming into a moment of truth and transparency, then we should be able to see that and question it and be like, okay, Mr. Hallett, well, I have a question because something's a little incongruent here. Could you clear this up for me? That should be able to be cleared up. If it's not able to be cleared up, then why is that not be able to be cleared up?
Why give us all the reasons to question?
Yeah. So now I'm questioning that. Be like, well, Greg, if you're not coming clean to me, like M, if I seen M walk across the street and take a right and go into the liquor store, and he tells me he doesn't drink, but I just saw him go into the liquor store and he said, no, I went into the candy shop and I got a donut. You're like, wait a minute, dude, I just saw you walk into no, I didn't. I walked it. I'm like, okay.
No, I probably did walk into the liquor store, to be honest.
But then you saw it with your own eyes. But you know what came to me, Rice, when we were talking and I had already went to another location, and it hit me. I think I told you this. It's like, how could someone, and I'm not saying anyone's doing this, we're already dealing with this in the world, but how could someone tote a lie and perpetuate it when they know there's consequences? But then it hit me. It's because they don't think there's consequences. Because you can call it a narcissist, and that's just a psychological term, but for me, it just means lack of love for the self.
Well, even sociopath. And many people have used both those terms that don't know each other. So it's not as if this is like hearsay or anything, but if somebody had narcissistic tendencies or sociopathic tendencies, then they would not admit that they were wrong or even acknowledge that they were wrong. It's not.
Yeah, there's so many psychological reasons. It's like, so it hit me. It's like, wow, but it's because this person has no compassion. They have no love for themselves, so they can harm anybody in the way, and there's no consequence. So I'm not saying this is Greg, but if this was an individual, no matter who they are, we can see that in politics now. It's happening right now before our eyes with many, many people, that they have no consequence to what happens to others through their actions, and it's null and void. So that's why they can just continue on, and it doesn't seem, and that's how people get involved in thinking, oh, well, this person's so confident, that's how the con wins. And I'm not saying Greg's a con, but we have to look at everything and see, because people don't think like that. They don't think, well, why would you do that? Well, because people are disconnected, and that's what they call narcissism, psychopaths, sociopaths, or you can even call it lack of compassion. Many things you can put in place there, but it happens.
This is why it's important, I think, to look into Greg's background and relationships with others. So, I haven't got a doctor's note to say, look, he has been seeing someone and they have, diagnosed that he has narcissistic tendencies or sociopathic tendencies. But what I've gathered from speaking to, his family, and again, it's whether you trust the words of these people, but then his family and two separate friends that have known him from different times have all said the same things, that his character profile kind of matches, and they have all all of them used the words narcissistic and sociopathic. Okay, and part of what is showing that is that these people I spoke to, he's cut ties with all of them. And, you know, I have to ask the question, does anyone know that he's still in contact with anyone from his past now? Or is it just congregated around him since claiming himself to be the rightful king of England and the world? And right.
Jim Fetzer, I talked to him by email, spoke to him on the phone. I told you this, and he's been a longtime friend of Greg's for over 20 years, still is friends, and he's experienced a lot of the different contradictions and conflictions and inconsistencies of what Greg has said, but he hasn't really kind of, to me personally, commented on that. I have asked him if he wants to do an interview, but now that I'm saying what I'm saying, I don't really think I need to even make any more videos about Hallett at all. And but to be fair with what you're doing, Em, I mean, obviously you're on a mission. I don't want to dismiss that either. So for people who want to look into what you're doing and your YouTube channel, so for people who would like to see what you've been talking about and what you've been trying to work towards, how can people be able to find you and just quickly summarize what you're doing with the channel?
I mean, you can find me on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube. But on my YouTube, if you were to, I mean, if you're watching this video, you must know who Greg Hallett is. You must know what he's doing and what he's claiming, at least, you know, if you've got this far in the video. So I'm sure you already, the viewers out there, have a bit of background, you know, a bit of information on who Greg Hallett is. And now they should know what I have been doing and why I've been doing it, importantly. So thank you for giving me the time on your show to kind of, you know, explain the reasons behind why I have this drive to do what I'm doing. But if they wanted to go on my channel, you know, a couple of important videos to watch, I would say, is the Lineage Lies video. I mean, it's in some ways similar to the video you did, Rise for the Sisters. It maybe goes in a bit from a different angle.
Well, you developed a little bit more of a relationship with the sisters. You talked to them. Plus, you're from the UK and they're from New Zealand, and I'm in the United States, and I don't understand most of all your guys' dry humor at all. So
that's right. And I mean, the Amanda are actually the friends and family. I mean, a lot of them are obviously New Zealand, but the thing is some of them have lived or spent a lot of time in the UK. So me and Amanda have joked before about, oh, you probably don't get the sarcasm. She's like, well, I lived there for, I think, 20 odd years. I certainly get the sarcasm. Yeah, we have different humor, especially over in the States. You know, from my experience with Americans, they get sarcasm, but don't quite find it as funny, or might miss it sometimes when it's
right.
But yeah, no, I've built a relationship with them, you know, because I kind of went in, you know, months ago, learning who they are and kind of building their trust, hoping to speak more to them, hoping they'll open up, because they have no obligation to open up. They felt like they should put across a message, you know, guys, it's not too far now, you're giving them money, you know, just listen to us if you can, if you will. We're just putting this message out. You know, he's had a history of, you know, sort of putting wool over people's eyes, as they put it, long story short. And he's had a history of receiving donations and living off of donations. So, you know, they wanted to put that out to help people. They saw I was a similar goal, trying to help people, their mental health, trying to bring awareness of some of the questions that need asking. And through that, we started talking a lot. And, you know, then I managed to get an interview. And at the time I did the interview with them and was talking to them a lot, I didn't have a YouTube channel, as I said before. So I did the interviews, and when I released my channel, I released, I think, like eight odd videos, like bang, straight away, because I've been working on it for months. Yeah, so the sisters, you know, I did go into it objectively. I did sort of scrutinize, you know, their paper.
I mean, you definitely, I told you this, you definitely come off very biased, and you have your reasons for it. You were coming at this differently. So, I mean, so I want people who are going to check out your channel to know that in advance, that you're already kind of, he's guilty in your eyes, and you're putting that forth in the video. So that is 100% your opinion, obviously, and your emotion involved. And I appreciate it. And I do appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to reach out to people other people in his life, not just the sisters, because you spoke to, we don't have to go into detail because it's on your channel, but Tom Cahill, who I know that Greg lived with for about 4 months. You've spoken to, I believe you spoke to that Laurence de Mello, who or had some sort of communication, have an understanding of that Mountamont book or whatever it's called.
Mountbatten.
So I mean, you've done your research. So for anybody who wants to kind of dig into this a little bit more, I would definitely encourage people to check out your channel, and I'll make sure that we include links down below so people can find it directly. Because a few people that I've tried to lead them to, because it is a small channel, and there's a lot of shadow banning and censorship going, they weren't even able to find it typing in your name. I had to send them a link. And I told them to type in M Seeker as one word, like the word seeker with the letter M in front of it, and try it the other way, and none of those ways would pull.
So if you want to find me on Facebook, you can find me M Seeker of Truth, or M Seeker as one word and of Truth as one word. That's my profile of the page.
Because you can have a first and last name, so you had to combine those.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, but on the YouTube, I've not come across anyone that's had trouble getting to it. Maybe they are starting to censor me now. Maybe they don't want the truth, or what I'm saying is the truth coming out. But it should be simple. M Seeker of Truth on my YouTube channel too. So I've not seen anyone or heard anyone. That's the first time hearing it, of people having trouble finding my channel. But it is a small channel. I've still got under 1,000 subscribers. It's only been a few weeks. But again, I've obviously thankful for being on your channel, and I've been featured on or spoken of by people on other channels as well. And I think that's really helped kind of boost awareness, to have people come onto my channel and review my videos. So I appreciate what you've done and what other people have done to highlight me, at least for people to go and have a look themselves and make up their own mind on the information that I've presented. So they're not just listening to what's falling out of Greg's mouth. Just even if you go into it looking at, that I am biased, or if you go into it looking and thinking, well, Greg told me he's a deep state agent, just listen to the information.
Some of it's entertaining though. You've got a really funny sense of humor. I like your sword video. Where you have like some toy sword. It's like looks like a pirate, or like some sort of crazy like swashbuckling sword.
It's a blow-up sword, yeah. And at that point, I didn't have a YouTube channel, and I'd literally made it for a small group of my friends. And I was thinking about doing these interviews at the time, but I thought, you know what, I'll give video making a go, because I'm completely new to this. And I just thought, let's make something fun. Let's make something funny. We just watched the Hidden King. I think it was the second part, where he talks about the sword that he was presented of Saxe-Coburg Gotha sword that he was knighted with, that made him Lord Chancellor. And he said, "Oh, when I get the power, when you get something like that, so powerful in your hands, and you really feel it, And he goes, I really feel it. You really feel the power." And I just found that funny, and so I made a video with it.
Do you remember, Stan? Do you remember Greg when he said that?
I think so.
Talking about sleeping with the sword and holding it up the next morning, and
they asked him to sleep with the sword. Yeah.
Yeah, but he said how it made him feel really powerful.
Yeah, he said they asked him about his dreams or something too, but I don't remember if he answered.
It reminded me of He-Man, like when Prince Adam would have held the skull up and said to the Castle Grayskull, "I have the power."
Yes, yeah. No, so it was just again, I just thought I'd chuck that on there. When I chucked those 8 videos on there, I made sure it was the first video, so people could see my early work. But the humor is still funny, bit of shoddy editing work, but I've got a sense of humor. I pride myself on it.
I want to say the cognitive dissonance works both ways too. So, for people who, whatever way this story plays out, people could still be in denial no matter what it is, and it does work both ways. So if people are just mindful not to get emotionally involved, so they don't detriment to themselves whatever happens with the story.
As Rice said, look, if I'm wrong, I will hold my hands up afterwards. What I would really like is for Greg to answer these important questions that myself and Rice have put forward, just to give a bit more clarity and transparency around his research and his claims. And if he does that, you know, I'm not, you know, I agree with you, cognitive dissonance works both ways. I'm definitely in the bias zone now, okay? And I've built this in my mind, this opinion, but some of it was based on what I believe is facts. But however, if lots of information then came out and said, well, you asked for all these questions, here you go, here's the proof, here's the proof, here's the proof. I am not, it's hard to say because I mean, I'm going to feel like I've got egg on my face, but, you know, I'm not going to then go down, you know, crying, you know, he's definitely lying still, even if he's got all this proof, because I am open-minded. You know, like I said, when he first came to light, I believed in him, and I, like lots of people, wanted to believe in him. It just took me a lot less time than many others to kind of change my opinion. I've spent well over half my life looking into conspiracy theory, alternative truths. And when I was young, Facebook wasn't really a thing. And you could only talk about it with your friends or family. And after a while of getting sort of laughed at for talking about things that are really out there, you know, I decided, well, I'll keep on researching it, but, you know, I'll keep this kind of to myself. Things are different now. There's lots of stuff out there. They're easy to find. The internet's, you know, sort of anyone's, you know, palms to going out and look at, especially with the time we've had over lots of people being off work because of this pandemic and whatnot. People have had a lot of time to look into these things. And I've just been amazed by the amount of people that are waking or at least looking into things that's not on the mainstream media, you know, it's looking at alternative truths, as I call them. And like I say, I looked into it, and I could be swayed the other way. But first of all, you know, you have to kind of answer those questions that are important for me in my mind. And it seems that you guys agree with. It's kind of important to give clarity and transparency around those questions before I can kind of be coaxed out of that bias zone. But I'm sure I could be a believer, but I'm firmly in that bias zone now because I believe that I've got so much information and evidence and so many people speaking out about who they portray as the real him that are around me that I could feel like that. And if the other side of the story are not giving anything to contradict, in fact, just silencing its fans on its pages so that, because they say they're being attacked by deep state, so no one can give any alternative information. They're not answering requests from people like Rice to just sit down and have an honest interview, you know, and, you know, he was never attacking them at that point. He was asking questions. So everyone who's asking questions is being called a troll and a deep state agent. There's important questions that need to be asked that are not being answered or even entertained. It just rings too many alarm bells, and that keeps me in this zone.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate everything you said, man. I guess before we do wrap things up, Stan, did you have any final thoughts, any more wisdom that you wanted to share?
Well, you know, it would be nice if Greg or even Mahoney, since he has great connections with Greg, to really be able to ask some questions that are challenging. Not, you know, we've already kind of beat a dead horse with the same old questions, but, you know, watching the last video with Mahoney and Greg, there was a look on Mahoney's face that was a little disturbing. And if people watch it, you can kind of see for yourself. Maybe I'm just reading into something.
That's the video where that's titled Legal Fiction, that he's specific.
You're not the first person to say that, Stan.
But that's the one where he's specifically talking about me. That's the one that set me off, that made me do that I reacted to that video. I should have waited 24 hours on, because that's where he's saying that I've been badgering and pestering. And just in all fairness, Charlie Ward, David Mahoney, Jack Kidd, all these guys told me they talked to Greg. They assured me that I was going to get an interview with Greg. That's the reason why they were giving me permission to upload the documentaries, as well as Stan to upload them to our channel. I was told this very, very specifically. I couldn't have an interview with him during a certain time period because he was under contract with Mahoney based off the documentaries, which makes sense. Anybody would do stuff like that because they don't want to ruin the documentary that they spent all this time doing by having interviews that reveals information. But I was told afterwards I was going to get an interview. And so because I wasn't getting what I was being offered, what I felt like I earned, and then, yeah, the ego thing came into it. But I just wanted to kind of give that little insight on that, because it wasn't as if as Greg was saying in that video, that I was badgering and pestering him, because it wasn't like every day. It might have been like once every 2 or 3 weeks I would contact him and see, have you seen my stuff? Are you going to accept my interview request? Blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't exactly how he's saying it, but I agree that, and I even sent a text message to Mahoney, because I still am trying to leave the door open for all those guys. If they choose that they don't want to have a relationship with me, that's up to them. But I did tell Mahoney that I was concerned with the way he looked, because I don't know if it's all the people attacking him on social media that's got him stressed out, if it's maybe the things that people are bringing to his attention and him dealing with Greg that's got him stressed out. But he does look rough.
Well, if David Mahoney is very invested, and cognitive dissonance for him could be very strong based on his investment. And he may not realize it, and I could be way off. But, I don't have anything against any of these guys. I haven't communicated with them personally at all. One time with Charlie Ward on his channel, and when you and I did a show with him. But to create this divide and shut people out, to me it's bothersome, because if we can't have dialogue and a banter and say, hey, so and so, what do you think about this? This seems a little bit off. Maybe we can get this answered. It doesn't ring right to me, and I really like his story. I like the guy, but something doesn't seem right. And should we not be able to ask these questions? Like everything that's going on, shouldn't we be able to question what some things Trump does, or the Q movement, or what Charlie says, or what Mahoney says, or what I say? We should be able to question each other, but come clean. And if we can't do that, we're not getting anywhere. We're just continuing the same cycle that we've been in, and we're not really advancing in our consciousness.
So true. So true.
So if you guys see this, Charlie, David, Lee, just see if we can come to a common ground. And if anything happens to Greg's story, if he needs help, then let's get him help. If he doesn't, then it's not a problem. But that's where we have to realize compassion again. Some people are really sick, some aren't. Some of us are halfway sick, partially sick. There's all different variables and variances, and if we can just help each other out, then we get further along faster.
Keyword: help each other out.
Yeah.
Together. I mean, there's a reason why people banded together, and there were tribes and stuff like that back in ancient days, is because that stuff actually works, and it's very effective. And humans need to have each other. We need to be able to work off each other's strengths and weaknesses, and that's what builds us up as individuals. So, any short little words you want to say before we wrap up?
Check out my YouTube channel, guys. Rice, I want to thank you for obviously coming on the show. And it's been good.
Well, Stan show too, because it's going to be on both of our channels.
Okay, Stan, thank you as well. It's good to meet you, Stan. This is the first time we've actually met. I know that me and Rice. Yep. But yeah, I mean, my final words are: if you are believing or supporting Greg, just ask the tough questions. Don't just listen to what he's saying. Look at the evidence he's providing, and listen to what he's saying, and then kind of go back and check that there's evidence there. And if there's not, kind of ask him those questions. He should be able, if he's going to tell you these things and he wants you to support these things, he should be able to easily provide you, the evidence to give you, what's the word? So that you are sure that you are following, the right guy. So it's just important to always ask questions. You do that with everything else. It seems a lot of these people do anyway. They question the media, they question everything else. But a lot of these people anyway, I know I'm kind of stereotyping the average follower of Greg, but these people usually are generally quite awake to things. But it just seems, from my experience, a lot of them will shut down when you kind of say, question the narrative. So I just want people to kind of wake themselves up, or that's a bad way of putting it, just to kind of, make sure that you're doing your due diligence with this. Make sure you're doing the research, not just being fed the research. You are asking the questions and looking further into it for yourselves, because that's what I did. And I've come out, like I said, this way, but you might do it, and then you might be able to say, hey, Em, look, I found the truths that you were looking for, and this supports Greg. And if you do, fair enough, I'll hold my hands up, but just please question for yourselves.
Sounds good, dude. And I will say personally that I don't plan on doing any more full videos that Greg Hallett is the subject matter of. I'm not saying I'll never mention him in any videos.
Sure.
I do a lot of live discussions with people, so that may come up from time to time. I am going to leave the door open for Greg if he wants to accept my interview request. Just other than that, I've done what I can to put out the information. I've got other things I need to focus on, and Greg Hallett isn't one of those at this point anymore. So for those of you who are watching this on my YouTube channel, this is closure on my end, pretty much for the most part. I would say a 98% closure right now is where I'm at. I'm done with the situation. I've done what I can. I put out the energy that I feel I can put out, and I don't want to put out anymore. With that being said, we're going to have links down below for all of our YouTube channels. I would encourage you to check out all of our channels. If you're watching us on Stan's, check out mine and M's. If you're watching us on mine, check out Stan and M's. I don't know what I'm saying, but make sure you check out all of our YouTube channels. Links will be down below. And I always say these conversations will be continued, but this particular conversation will never be continued, but other conversations will. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. M, just hang on for one moment. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be the change by practicing change.